The Northtown News Magazine is brought to you in part by the Chicago Police Memorial Fund, helping the families of slain and seriously injured officers.
Hi, I'm Jesse White, Illinois Secretary of State, and I want Marty Levinson to know that I'm cutting all the waste in the Secretary of State's office.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned for the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. Over 250,000 shows watched on YouTube. You'll find all the links on ntnm.org. Community policing, caps24.org. Sonny Hirsch, in his spare time, is chairman of the District Advisory Committee of the 24th District. All community policing meetings for the 10 sector, which is West Rogers Park, take place on the second Thursday of the month. All the meetings for the rest of the year, which will be October and November, will take place at Warren Park tomorrow. Our meeting is tomorrow, actually, which means October 10th is when we air. And second Thursdays, Warren Park, rest of the year. November, hopefully free pizza. It'll be kosher, veggie, the whole shot, so everybody can come eat it. It is a pleasure to introduce you to my favorite commissioner. Sorry, Bridget, I like you, but I like this guy better. Larry Suffredin, how you doing?
Hey, Abby, how are you?
Good. And you're commissioner of the 13th District, and you're actually up
Of
for...
Cook County, a Cook County commissioner.
Right.
You know.
And you're
We have a lot of commissioners out there, but
You're a two-termer.
I'm a three-termer. I'm running for my fourth.
Oh, Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I originally...
I've been around a long time.
Yeah, we became friends when I didn't support, and I was proud to not support your opponent the first time you ran, despite the fact that he was Jewish in a Jewish paper, because he was busy having people on his payroll who were in Florida as full-time mosquito inspectors.
Well, he was a nice man, and he's recently died. And
oh, you know what? I didn't realize that. You're right, I should. And I didn't mention his name, though.
Yeah, and he was a very nice man, and I'm happy to say that one of the things I was able to do was get a forest preserve named after him, and we came to a nice relationship at the end of his life.
Oh, that I'm glad to hear. And by the way, speaking of the forest preserve, it's interesting because of all the people, all the Jewish politicians in the area, the person who is the biggest help, and I've heard this from, like the people in the Greater Chicago Jewish Fest, to them is, and by the way, you have no idea how many people think you're Jewish.
Well,
they think somehow the name Suffredin is Jewish, which is short for Suffredini. You've got the beard, you've got this ecumenical thing, but you were a Jesuit at one time?
No, I was in the seminary. I was trained by the Jesuits, but I was not in the Jesuits.
Right.
I also speak a little Greek, and there are a lot of people who think I'm Greek. It's a wonderful thing because all of those ethnic groups, the Italians, the Greeks, the Jewish people, are all very similar in their warmth and how they interact with people. So I'm happy to be mistaken for all of those groups.
There's this Esther the Queen in the famous Purim story who, it says in the Megillah, and that is the actual Megillah that the word Megillah comes from, talks about how everybody thought that she was one of theirs. She was so warm and nice that everybody, figured, oh, she's from my nation. No, she's from my nation. So you have that same nice trait where everybody likes you along those lines.
Right. And by the way, you mentioned the Jewish Folk Festival, which happens every year in St. Paul Woods, or every other year, I'm sorry, in St. Paul Woods, and will happen next year in 2014. We just today have locked in the dates for next year. I don't remember what they are, but Michael Lorge, who's now the Corporation Council of Skokie, who is one of the co-chairs of the Jewish Folk Art Festival and the Forest Preserve. I've been helping them get together, and it really is one of the most remarkable events. I know you go out there and tape and have shows from there, but there are many stages and artisans, and it is one of the most magnificent days, and there are about 30,000 people who show up. And St. Paul Woods is a large enough venue to hold all those people, and there's plenty of parking and things. it's really one of the great events that we have in the Cook County Forest Preserve
No, it
system.
really is. It's great entertainment, artists, various menus. It's super. I mean, there's some very famous artists I've seen over there. They had the lead singer from Bare Naked Women last time. They Peter Yarrow, who I actually originally worked with in the McCarthy campaign. I was part of the advance crew, and he married McCarthy's niece and set up for him. I mean, there's been a lot of
And
really
that's
great.
Peter, Paul, and Mary for
Right.
the
And a good
the
Jewish
older
boy,
people.
by the way.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah.
And Paul was Jewish too, but none of that's their real name. I think his real name is something like, Herbie Zimmerman or something.
Well, but that is a great event, and since we're talking about the forest preserves,
Sure.
We're in the fall season now. This is the time to go out and take a walk in the forest preserve. As we're taping this today, it's a very, very hot day, but by the time this plays in October, it'll be beautiful to walk on the trails, and all of our trails are multi-trails, so bicyclists and hikers can share a trail, and there's even some of the trails you can share with a horse and go through along the river in Harms Woods. I mean, it's just we're so fortunate to have about 69,000 acres of land.
Wow.
Today we had a forest preserve meeting and we added another 10,000 acres. We've been buying acres. We recently bought a piece of property in Wilmette, One Hap Road, which will help with flooding up in the Wilmette area, and it also gives us the connector between Harms Woods and the village of Wilmette. It make it easier for people to ride their bike to get over to
nice.
the bike trail and things like that. So I really encourage you, take advantage of this weather and get out and see the Cook County Forest Preserves and the color in those trees.
No, it's really gorgeous this time of year. There's no question about it. And yeah, it's been a while since I've been in the forest preserves. Not since the last Jewish Fest, to be honest.
Well, and that's every other year, so it's over a year ago. So you need to get out there. You need to get outside a little more, Avi.
Yeah, actually, there's no
Maybe we
question.
could get you in a canoe. You want to come out on New Year's Day? We have our New Year's Day canoe paddle. You could.
But you know what? Actually, I would probably enjoy that. I like canoeing. I really used to do that a lot. I really enjoy that kind of thing.
Let's talk about that when we get closer to January 1.
Okay.
By the way, one of the other people who recently died was Ralph Fries, who I was able to name the river trail on the north branch of the river for Ralph Fries. Ralph was kind of the father of canoeing in Cook County. He owned for many years the Chicagoland Canoe Basin, which was basically on Narragansett and Irving. He learned to canoe in the what is now the Brickyard Shopping Center was really a quarry, and the water in the bottom of the quarry is where he learned to handle a boat as a young boy, and ran a blacksmith shop and a canoe shop there. We're actually going to have a street naming for him. Alderman Tim Cullerton is naming the street in front of the shop for him and later this month in September 21st. I'm going to be able to speak at it. But he is, there are so many great volunteers in our forest preserve, and he was one of these people who just got everybody involved there, and he got them to understand the history of the people who settled this area and came by boat, came from Canada, came up the Mississippi and into Chicago, the Father Marquettes of the world and Joliet's, and so we've lost him this year, but we'll be remembering him every New Year's Day when we do our paddle and the Des Plaines River Marathon, which he started. We'll remember him there, and so it just the forest preserve is the great jewel of our area, and I always encourage people to go there. Always encourage you to go up to the Botanic Garden, which is at the far north end of my district. Yeah, I mean, that Botanic Garden is becoming the most visited Botanic Garden in the world because we've had the ability to have great donors up there. The library and things up there, they've been able to buy from botanic gardens all over the world that were having financial trouble. Their book collections, they now have a library that is second to none with the work on all kind of botany. And now with Northwestern University, they're giving advanced degrees, postgraduate degrees to students, and there's a group of students that work every day at the Botanic Garden. And then the Botanic Garden works with us at the county jail. They're helping inmates do farming. We're doing a lot of work in neighborhoods, in Lake County and in Cook County and in the suburbs and in the city with the Botanic Garden. There's a young woman up there, Sophia Siskel, who's the president, who's one of the most remarkable executives I've ever met, and she has really transformed what was a phenomenal garden into a dynamic community agent of good.
Very cool. But I really, I haven't been there in a long time. It's funny because I think you can walk in free, but if you have a car, it costs money.
That's right, and that's why I encourage people, you can park in the Forest Preserve and hike in, and then you don't have to pay it. It's a nominal charge to become a member, and then you get free parking.
Yeah.
They have railroads. My grandchildren love to go up there to see the railroads. The railroads are outside during the summer and the fall, and then in the winter they're brought inside. And these are actual gardens where the miniature railroad trains run through these various gardens. And for little children, it's just one of the nicest things to be able to see. They come to appreciate the trains especially, but then they see all of this growth and they start looking at the color of the flowers and other things. So it's one of the great sites, and it's not far from us. If you can take the Metro train up to Highland Park and you can walk from the train to the station, or there's a Pace bus that's very inexpensive to get there, or you can ride your bike or hike and get there.
Yeah. Speaking of, you didn't mention Caldwell Woods, which actually I wanted to visit for my last car because I've got at least a couple of hubcaps that, that hit bumps on the road and rolled in there.
I think that people probably have collected those, so those hubcaps aren't going to be there. Now that the hubcaps are more plastic, they don't seem to fly as much as those wonderful metal ones did when they'd spin off the car and take off as flying saucers.
I never thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah, it's a different situation. So we're here, and the county. It's kind of a good time in the county. We are very active in our county care enrollment. We are had a 1-year head start on national health care under the national health care law, Obamacare. We have been signing up. We got permission to sign up 115,000 single-member families. So these are people without children, men and women, who have been ineligible for Medicaid up till now and become eligible on January 1. But we were given a year to try to sign them up, and we have signed up about 90,000 as we sit here in the middle of September.
Wow! Of
the 115,000, and these are people who are for the first time in most of their lives getting really quality health insurance so that they can go and not be afraid to get the care. And the healthier we make them, the healthier our total society will be.
How old do you have to be for this?
The children up to 18 are covered by kids care in Illinois. So these are adults 18 and older. There's an income level, but if you're just barely getting by, you're going to qualify. Okay.
So my question is, where can people go if they want to sign up?
You go to our Cook County Health and Hospital website, and County Care it's called, and you can go to a library. They'll help you fill out the forms. You can come to my office in Evanston at 820 Davis. We'll help you fill out the forms.
Oh, and by the way, his staff is very, very, very helpful.
We're right now we're just finishing up with our various townships with the Board of Review and the Assessor's Office. Niles Township is just open with the assessor reassessing there. Here in Rogers Park, we just finished with the Board of Review. We're in the second year of the assessment. In Evanston, we just finished with the Board of Review. We're going to start in New Trier with the Board of Review. So we constantly have one township or another where we're helping people challenge their tax assessments. And one of the things that I like when I have this opportunity is to remind all of you, you need to twice a year challenge the assessment on your property. That's the only way you can feel comfortable that you're only paying your fair share. So one time a year, the assessor's office is open, you go back to them. One time a year, the Board of Review is open, you go back to them. Mike Cabinargi is our member of the Board of Review. Everything now is online. You can register online with the assessor, you can register online with the Board of Review. I just encourage you to do this because while property values have been going down and most people's assessments have gone down, the medians are different for different communities. Like in Niles, the median today is a negative 19% in the assessments that just came out this week. So that means if your assessment went down a negative 10%,
Yeah.
you're on the wrong side of the median. So you're probably going to end up paying more taxes even though your assessment's lower.
Wow.
You know, and so that's why you've got to just stay on top of it. And you know, our wonderful Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky is always talking about how we've got to protect the middle class, and that the middle class is what's really endangered with the way the distribution of wealth is in this society, the 90% versus the 99% versus the 1%. But the one thing that we can do to help protect the middle class, since for most of us, our home is the biggest investment and value that we have as an asset, is to make sure that it's not overtaxed and we're only paying our fair share.
No, that's very important, and it's you know, actually the one time I did appeal, and I should have done it this time, and I know it, was actually with the help of your office isn't allowed to actually fill out the forms, but your people there were very helpful educating me about what I needed to do in order to do the appeal, and you know, it's a great service, and he's really got good people on his staff.
Yeah, well, our job is not to be your representative, it's to help you advocate for yourself. And so it's to educate you and to show you the resources that are available. A lot of people are confused by the system and they want to hire lawyers, and that's great. As a lawyer, I'm not opposed to people hiring lawyers. But the assessor and the Board of Review have made the system a little bit more transparent and a little more understandable. And so you can do it yourself. But if it's a little bit like the lottery, if you don't appeal, you're not going to get relief. So if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win the lottery. And the other thing to remember is people get nervous. Well, they say, well, the house that's lower than me is my neighbor's house, and I don't want to raise his or her values. The system is set up so that the only thing that can happen is your value goes down. Their values are never touched by you using their properties as a comparable. So I really encourage you to do it. You know, I joke about when you go to the assessor, it's a little bit like arguing with the umpire in a baseball game. The umpire's just made the initial decision on your value, and we find that in about 30% of the cases we can get relief. And that's, you know, difficult because the umpire doesn't change their mind that much, but there are mistakes and characteristics of property and things that we can help you figure out and point out to the assessor. The Board of Review, the amount of relief is a little higher. It gets closer to 60%, and that's because they get to use a different standard under the statute. The assessor's stuck with real estate sales and analyzing the value of those sales and what impact it has on your property. While the Board of Review is like a court of equity, it gets to figure out what's really fair. And so I always say, you know, if you see two houses identical, built by the same builder, built in the same year, same lot size, all the rooms the same, but one of them happens to be on the lake and the other one happens to be under the L, the value of those two houses is not going to be the same. And to the assessor, on paper, sometimes they appear to be the same, but to the Board of Review, they can say, oh my gosh, that one's under the L, and every 5 minutes there's a train that goes by, which is different than the wave that might lap against the sand every 5 minutes.
You know what? When I had a larger business and I had to rent property, I found out twice, without realizing. Twice I was on Dempster and Sherman initially, and the tracks were right there, and we got to hear it all the time. And when I moved to Byron and Ravenswood, once again, I was right by the Metro and all the rest of it. And I didn't realize that was one of the reasons the rent was so good.
Yeah.
So that's a legitimate point. I would hate to live in an apartment next to a train like that. It was bad enough in the business.
You know, I think that they talk about it as white noise, that you get used to it. But, you know, for some people it's probably thrilling. And there are people who are into railroads. You know, at the Howard station, I was there for the opening of the station when it was rebuilt. And there are benches that were put there to watch the tracks where the trains are switching from track to track.
Cool. I use
and
Howard Station
there are
a lot.
a lot of railroad buffs go there who are just intrigued with how our public transit works and how those Skokie Swift trains and the Evanston Purple Line trains and the Red Line, Main Lines trains all share track and move back and forth. So
it really is cool because I take the Purple Line up to Evanston when I've got one of my better customers is over at Northwestern, Rabbi Klein, and you know, I take the Skokie Swift also if I want to hit Taboon or someplace like that. And by the way, also, I urge public transportation for so many reasons. It's especially cool when you go over the Water Reclamation District property and get to see all those tanks and stuff. I always wonder what was there. It's so vast.
Yes.
You know, it's pretty educational what's over there.
Yes. Well, and hopefully, you know, with the new station in Skokie at Dempster, which is just a magnificent station, and hopefully we can bring back a couple more. We're kind of rebuilding the old North Shore Railroad, and if we get a few more of their stops, you know, we'll be back to the 1920s with an efficient railroad operation.
Yeah, if we were feeling wealthy as kids, we used to take the South Shore Line as opposed to the CTA.
Right, right.
And that was a fun ride, but I think it was something like 20 cents compared to 12 cents or something. So I'm showing my age.
Well, you know, I once took the South Shore to South Bend to see a Notre Dame Army game when I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And you know, the train went through. It was went through towns before it got to South Bend. But it took a while. But I remember as a 9-year-old how exciting it was. It was more exciting than the Notre Dame Army football game.
Yeah, you know, that's well, I shouldn't say anything. I was a fan of their basketball team, especially when they beat UCLA. You actually remember the day that Notre Dame stopped UCLA's winning streak, which was interesting. But that was I actually went to a friend's house. It was on the Sabbath, and he left the TV on. And in those days, I would you know, like go over to somebody's house to watch the games, and that was just thrilling. Thanks, Phil, by the way.
Yeah.
In case you're watching. What else is going on in the county and the district?
Well, you know, in the county, we seem to be financially in fairly good shape. We're working on our pension issues. I think they aren't as severe as in the other governments around us. Commissioner Gaynor, who you've had on, has been doing a lot of work on the pension issue. President Preckwinkle is going to be presenting her budget shortly. You know, she's running for re-election. We are all running for re-election. This is next year, the entire 17 members of us on the county board and the president. So I think that you'll find that this will probably be a less eventful year because people will try not to have controversies when there's an election year coming up.
Interesting.
But you know, I think we're in good shape. Clearly, her stewardship is much better than the stewardship of her predecessor.
I'll agree with that.
Todd Stroger, who just never seemed to fit into the office. And so, you know, as you look at governments around us that seem to be in chaotic situations, I'm happy to say I don't serve in one of those governments, and that, you know, while we still have our issues, we are a government that is functioning. And, you know, the court system and the jail, we are doing what we can to stop the overcrowding at the jail and try and get cases to be more efficient. The hospital system is functioning very well. We have this new president, Dr. Ram Raju, who's now been with us almost a year and a half and has really been a phenomenal leader and helped us get the waiver that we just talked about earlier on for Medicaid, and is just turning our hospital into a well-run financial institution as well as a medical institution. And we're also reducing our taxpayer subsidy to the hospital, which is a remarkable thing. And the forest preserves have really been going very, very well. Arnold Randall, who President Preckwinkle appointed as general superintendent, is someone who, like Dr. Raju, just has a sense of the job and is a great administrator, has financially corrected problems that have existed in the forest preserve. You know, so things are going well as we talk. And so it's a pleasure to serve in this office, and it's a pleasure to serve the people of my district. With the new remap, I actually end up with the largest district population-wise, because some of the districts they put at about 295,000 people, and I'm at 330,000 people. So there's a differential there, and part of that was to ensure that they met the specifications of the Voting Rights Act. I'm happy to represent a larger district, and I go basically from Lake Cook Road to Devon Avenue and the lake to Harlem. There's a couple of little cutouts there that Representative Gaynor or Commissioner Gaynor or Commissioner Fritchie represent. But for the most part, I represent that area. So it gives me Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, Skokie, Evanston, Wilmette, Winnetka, Kenilworth, Glencoe, a little bit of Glenview, a little bit of Niles, and Rogers Park, East and West Rogers Park, the two wards, 49 and 50.
Is the boundary still? Is the boundary still like Arthur or Albany?
No,
or
it now goes down Devon.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
I get the north side of Devon.
Yeah, that is the Marv. Can't think of his last name, but that was a precinct captain, Marv.
Oh yes, I can see his face.
Yeah,
he was around for forever.
Pinky ring, big cigar.
Yeah,
And basically, the line was drawn there because he was the best precinct captain in the 50th ward, and the person in charge at the time was afraid that Marv would have screwed him big time, so he took Marv's precinct out of the district, which is why the line ran there. And by the way, Marv did actually tell me that he was right. And that he would have.
Well, there's some great political stories up here in the 50th ward, and I try to only do politics on the years we're running for election. So, in 2014, when I run for election, we'll come back here and we'll talk about the various offices that are up. But most of the time, I'm really privileged to just have to deal with the governmental side of this office. And
by the way, maybe I'll do. You co-hosted with me one year when
I
Jim
did.
Alley was out east. The fact is, I've been encouraged by CAN TV to do more shows from the studio. So maybe a little before the election, we'll get. I'll get you to come downtown and we'll do a show together.
Well, if you're going to do that, though, the one thing I learned when I went down to the studio, which is over on Green Street, right? Is that all the people who do shows down there all have their trademarks. They're like Walter Winchell with his microphone or his hat. There are people who have rugs and they have special chairs and special microphones and special lamps. So if we're going to do that, we're going to have to take your dining room here and move it down to Green Street so people will recognize that this is.
Yeah, people don't realize we're actually filming in my dining room.
Yes.
And this is the Shabbos table, and it's actually usually it's got this, it's got pictures of challah and wine and Jewish stars and things like that. And it says, Happy Sabbath, and have a good Yontif, a good holiday, and all that. So.
Well, I mean, what the two of you do in putting this show together and representing the community is really a remarkable.
Well, thank you. And Sonny gets all the credit for the entire equipment here, which makes my life so much easier. This beautiful black tablecloth, the background, and all the rest of it. He did all of that. He even did the logo for the show, and in his spare time, as Dr. Frankenstein, he even created it.
Well, as I like to tell candidates when I'm working on their campaigns, their job is to perform. Our job is to get all of the other things there that are necessary. So when Horowitz used to go to perform at a concert hall, he didn't have to make sure the piano was there, and he didn't have to make sure the piano was in tune. That was done by somebody like Sonny. So all you have to do is show up here. And
by the way, that made the show a million times better, because before I used to have to go down to Greektown to the studios on Green Street. I would have to take apart and put together the equipment to make sure it works and all that, bring it back up north, set it up. Sometimes the crew didn't show up. I'd have to turn on the camera and watch the monitor while I was shooting, then pack all the equipment up that night, bring it back either that night or the next day, and I couldn't concentrate on business at all. So 30-second warning to say thank you very much to Commissioner Larry Suffredin,
Thank you,
13th
Avi.
District, running for re-election for a 4th term. I urge you to vote for him early and often. And
Thank you.
I say the same thing to the state's attorney. So, shut up, Avi. Okay, I will. If people would like to contact your office.
Our office is at 820 Davis in Evanston, Illinois. We're right at the Metra and L station in downtown Evanston. And Karen Javers is my district director who runs the office. Suffredin.org is our website, and all the phone numbers are there, and my staff is always willing to help you or call us with any questions you have that you think are about the county, and if they're not about the county, we'll help you find out who can answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonny. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.